Perseverance, creativity, and the entrepreneurial spirit are at the heart of this powerful message of Earl Nightingale. Through stories like Charles Schulz's rise from failure to the creator of the beloved Peanuts comic strip, the importance of determination and self-belief comes to life. Schulz's journey illustrates how setbacks and rejection can become stepping stones for those who persist and trust in their unique talents. The mindset of entrepreneurs is celebrated, portraying them as visionaries who dare to explore uncharted territories with courage and optimism. Fear and doubt from others often challenge this spirit, yet progress and innovation come from those willing to take risks. Historical examples, such as businesses flourishing during the Great Depression, demonstrate how opportunities arise even in the most challenging times, reinforcing that creativity and service are keys to success. This message encourages reflection on personal passions and goals while challenging the fear of failure. It calls on individuals to embrace setbacks as tools for growth, to pursue meaningful work with unwavering determination, and to find fulfillment by serving others. Success, as shown, is not about avoiding failure, but about persevering through it and turning challenges into opportunities for greatness.
Staying with our plans, despite repeated setbacks, tends to build inner character, just as it draws maturity on our faces. Then there's the story I came across about Sparky. School was all but impossible for Sparky. He failed every subject in the 8th grade. He flunked physics in high school. Receiving a flat 0 in the course, he distinguished himself as the worst physics student in the school's history. He also flunked Latin and algebra and English. He didn't do much better in sports, although he did manage to make the school golf team. And then he promptly lost the only important match of the year. There was a consolation match. He lost that too. Throughout his youth, Sparky was awkward socially. He was not actually disliked by the other students. No one cared that much. He was astonished if a classmate ever said hello to him outside school hours. No way to tell how he might have done at dating in high school. Sparky never once asked a girl out. He was too afraid of being turned down. Sparky was a loser. He, his classmates, everyone knew it. So he rolled with it. Sparky made up his mind early in life that if things were meant to work out, they would. Otherwise, he'd content himself with what appeared to be his inevitable mediocrity. But there was one thing that was important to Sparky: drawing. He was proud of his own artwork. Of course, no one else appreciated it. In his senior year of high school, he submitted some cartoons to the editors of his class yearbook. They were turned down. Despite this particularly painful rejection, Sparky was so convinced of his ability, he decided to be a professional artist. Upon graduating from high school, he wrote a letter to Walt Disney Studios. He was told to send some samples of his artwork, and the subject matter for a cartoon was suggested. Sparky drew the proposed cartoon. He spent a great deal of time on it, and other drawings. Finally, the reply from Disney Studios came. He was rejected once again. Another loss for the loser. So Sparky wrote his own autobiography in cartoons. He described his childhood self, the little boy loser and chronic underachiever, in a cartoon character that would soon become famous all over the world. For Sparky, the boy who failed every subject in the 8th grade and whose work was rejected again and again, was Charles Monroe Schulz. He created the Peanuts comic strip, and the little cartoon boy whose kite would never fly, and who never succeeded in kicking the football, Charlie Brown. Perseverance. Nothing can take its place. There's a place for every person who will persevere. There is a large success lurking in everything we do. And it's not just our success we're talking about. Millions of people, large and very small, have been cheered and have seen themselves in Charlie Brown. There's a Lucy who will snatch that football away in every neighborhood. She's a good girl, really. She just loves to frustrate Charlie Brown. Charles Schulz succeeded beyond his most sanguine imagination and earned and deserved that success. Perhaps he failed at everything else he tried because his talent and humor were so complete, so wonderfully successful, when he finally found what it was he was supposed to do. Entrepreneur. E-N-T-R-E-P-R-E-N-E-U-R. Noun. A person who organizes, operates, and assumes the risk for business ventures, especially an impresario. The word comes from Old French. See enterprise. American Heritage Dictionary. For entrepreneurs, America was and is truly a paradise. All business activity in the United States and its territories began as entrepreneurial adventure. Trace any corporation back to its beginnings, or the beginnings of its parent corporation, or the beginnings of its parent corporation, as is sometimes the case, and you'll find it began as an idea that would fill or help fill a need or desire on the part of human beings who would become customers. Only human beings can buy things, or order that they be bought, even if the things purchased are for the consumption of things not human, like chickens, hogs, or beef cattle. We look today at a complex multinational organization like IBM and forget that the company began in the mind of a single human being. Anyone who starts or causes to be started a business venture is an entrepreneur. An impresario is one who does in the world of entertainment what the entrepreneur does in the world of business. Quite often the two are combined, for certain businesses are endlessly entertaining for those deeply connected with them, as well as for their customers. Both need customers. Without them, they'll close, their investment down the drain. The entrepreneurial adventure is endlessly attractive to those endowed with entrepreneurial spirits, adventurers, in varying degrees, whose visions of the future tend to be sanguine rather than sanguinary. That is to say, hopeful and enthusiastic rather than defeatist. The entrepreneur is the person who says, I think it'll be a big success. The non-entrepreneur says, you're going to lose your shirt. A survey taken many years ago of the most successful people in a large American city turned up the fact that most of their ultimate success depended in large measure on the jobs they had lost. Whether they had resigned or been fired wasn't all that important. And under questioning, those very successful people thought about that interesting fact for perhaps the first time and shuddered to think of what their present lives might have been like had they clung to one of those early jobs which at the time seemed so important to them and their families. They were not all entrepreneurs, of course, but they were people with faith in themselves and their ideas, which is the mark of success wherever it's found. During those important steps in their careers, they were no doubt warned by well-meaning relatives and friends to hang on to the jobs they had held and lectured on the dark and dismal pitfalls of adventuring off on something as ephemeral and evanescent as an idea. But of course good ideas are not ephemeral or evanescent as their state as a thought might indicate to the more fearful. They are the most important things in our biosphere, and it's producing ideas that raises the human being to his or her highest levels of achievement. Ideas solve problems, make our lives infinitely more interesting and rewarding, less dangerous, better fed, better employed, richer in countless ways, and wonderfully more comfortable. Without ideas, we would still be sitting in the trees grooming one another. All the creatures on the planet have life-saving techniques. Some are fleet of foot, others sharp of claw and fang. There are fish in the deep, dark trenches of the oceans that dangle tiny lanterns above their waiting jaws. But for the human being, there is the brain, the idea producer, to save his or her skin in myriad ways. The idea that results in a person running the risks of starting his or her own business depends strictly upon the person's background, education, previous levels of accomplishment, and aspirations. When I resigned from CBS, my friends told me repeatedly what an idiot I was. They reminded me that there were 10,000 guys in the U.S. who would part with anything for my contract with CBS. I'd reached the top. I went to work in the beautifully paneled, brass-trimmed elevators of the world-famous Wrigley Building in Chicago every day. I rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous, and I earned top dollar in my profession. Thousands, no millions, listened when I read the news or read the latest Jell-O commercial. Man, I was on top of the heap. I had it made, and I was only 28 years old. It does little good to remonstrate with an entrepreneur. Christopher Columbus, brilliant navigator that he was, could have spent his life in peace, navigating up and down the coastal waters of Europe and remaining within the known boundaries of the period's world maps. But at the edges of the known waters there appeared the terrifying legend, "Here there be dragons," and it was there that Columbus desired to sail, and it's there that every entrepreneur desires to sail. It's interesting to note that on the old maps, beyond the known world, there was never a legend reading, "Here there be unlimited opportunity for exploration. No doubt much gold and silver and precious gems. Strange human creatures live beyond these boundaries, waiting for discovery and development for the daring and intrepid sailor." Even though it had always been that way in the known world, no one ever suggested that it might still be that way in remaining undiscovered areas. It was the natural proclivity of cartographers, and is still the tendency of advice-givers, to look upon the unknown as bad. For they, like children going into a darkened basement, feel that the dark and the unknown must hold strange and fearful creatures unimaginable in the known and lighted world. They cannot think otherwise. It's their nature, as it's the nature of bankers, CPAs, many wives, and all brothers-in-law. What a dumb idea, they say. At the time of Columbus, not a single live dragon had ever been seen upon the planet Earth by anyone. Dragons were, in fact, fairy tale creatures. Yet they always inhabited the uncharted regions of the world. It said so right on the maps. So when you get an idea that you think will result in an excellent business of your own, and it needn't be a new idea by any means, keep it to yourself and your secret notepad for a period of time while you simmer it on the rotisserie of your minds, consciousness and unconscious. Let it turn while you view it from every angle. Look at it from the standpoint of the worst possible scenario. If it's a good, sound idea, it should survive even the worst times, as good businesses do. Incidentally, there are recession-free businesses, and many businesses that do as well or better in recessions than in good times. It was during the very worst years of the Great Depression of the 30s that the American film industry really got it together. There were delightful taffy merchants in uniform and wearing white cotton gloves in front of the better Los Angeles theaters. What wonderful hard taffy that was, and what opulent, magnificent palaces were the motion picture theaters of that time. For the American poor, they took the place of the great Gothic cathedrals of the Middle Ages. All of that, and free dishes to boot. And the Saturday morning matinees, what cliffhangers. Remember Harold Lloyd on the face of that great clock? All for a dime, although older folks had to pay 15 cents. And there was Wrigley's Chewing Gum, which got its start as a premium in boxes of soap. And miniature golf, and Monopoly, the hamburger stand, and radio. What a time for the entrepreneur. And it was the very time, despite the worst doldrums the nation had ever experienced from a fiscal standpoint, that saw the beginnings of thousands of companies that are today among the giants of the world. So what's your bag? So you have to ask yourself, or at least it's a good idea to ask yourself, what do I want to do with my time, however short or long it may be? Do I want to see the world and live in a penthouse apartment overlooking the sea and drive fine European cars and command a 50-foot flybridge sport fisherman with twin diesels throbbing below my feet? Or do I want to make a difference with what I believe to be a very good idea or talent that I've worked very hard to hone to marketability? If the money comes, great. I can spend it as well as the next guy. But I'm happiest doing my thing, and I don't want a boss telling me what to do for the rest of my working life. I want to be independent as much as that's possible, considering I can only succeed to the extent that I serve others. My public, whatever that amounts to, is my boss. I must please those people, or they won't give me the money to buy things I need and want.